All right, guys, we're back. Just a quick little break there. All right, we're gonna take some of these questions now. Q&A time from you guys, and we are gonna just again sort it by top and take a look at the top. There's a ton of Pagel and Tink questions, guys, and I think we've covered it to a pretty good degree. If there's any questions that I think have a different angle to it, I'll definitely ask it. But okay, so Minos El Oso SA asks, not a Tink or Pagel question. What do you feel will be the next class to rule constructed, or will Warlock continue to reign supreme until changes are implemented? And I think he's probably referring to the Zoo deck, right? Just I think being super popular on the ladder and having a lot of success. So I guess maybe let's start off by how do you rank the classes right now on the ladder? Maybe just top three.
Hmm.
Trump, you want to, or actually Stripe, you want to start since you.
Um, I guess it would be Druid and Warlock. I'm not sure about the third one. I think the game is even before the Matt Pagel and Think Master. It was just really, it was pretty
Balanced. Mm-hmm.
balanced. Yeah,
Yeah.
where nothing was really taking over the game. So it's hard to say something so much stronger to begin with.
Trump, your opinion. Top three.
I will not give a top three because I don't believe there is one.
Wow. Okay. Great. All right, so I guess that kind of answers that question in a weird way. So it's pretty balanced right now. I guess is the answer to it. So there's not really another class that's going to rule constructed. At least
I wanted
we'll
to
of course see
say
it in the
something
future.
a bit because the chat and also general forums have been saying like, oh man, there's all these Zoo decks and all these Murloc decks and all
Yeah.
these Hunter decks. And I got a net deck one of those. Otherwise I'm just gonna lose. So
That's not true.
for that I have to say, um, you see a lot of like even if you watch tournaments, you'd notice like some top players will lose these rush decks, and that happens. It's because you have to keep your deck a bit balanced against those. But if you run into a lot of them, this is a good place not to net deck and just build like a hard anti-aggro deck while still remaining somewhat competitive against control. So the hard, like if you just go with the stats, say you build a deck that's 70% win rate against aggro and 40% win rate against controlish decks, then you're going to be looking really good. So I encourage that people try out hating out the aggro with
Countering the aggro
anti-aggro
versus
cards.
playing aggro. Is that what you're saying, or
Yeah, I
yeah?
mean, if
Mm-hmm.
you build a deck that counters aggro, you're going to be really good if the metagame is so aggro heavy as people claim.
Yeah. And there are some classes that are already, I think built to be pretty good against the Zoo deck. I mean, I think the Warrior does pretty good against it if you have the certain cards in it, and I have to agree with that too. Okay, let's see. Moving on. There's another. There's another. I guess question about the Zoo. Kind of the Zoo deck being really popular by Al Soware, I think his name is. It says, with the overflowing amount of Zoo decks in the current meta, what are your thoughts about Blood Knight as a viable counter, or even an inclusion to it with all the Divine Shields in play? Would the trade-off be one big silenceable threat for all the trade value of Divine Shield be worth it considering the already high buffing potential of Zoo?
Let's see, what kind of divine shield do they have?
I
In,
know, I'm trying to
oh,
think. Like,
I think they're using the 3/1 with divine
yeah,
shields for
Crusader.
Yeah, they have
so.
Yeah.
Argent Squire and the 3/1 generally. To
I
that
mean,
I
I think it's
say,
good.
Yeah, that's four. It's four targets for sure.
I
not
mean, I think
just
it's
good, I think
certainly
it's
good against
excellent.
Druid. Yeah, I think it's really good against Zoo, and especially if you can find out a way to make the card good in general, such as say running it in something like Paladin deck with your own Argent Squires and the the 2 mana that gives Divine Shield. I forgot what it's called, Argent Protector, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can, that might be a good candidate since it could also steal your own Divine Shield
Yeah.
and get really big, or also it can steal theirs. So maybe those decks have a lot of potential right now.
What about even like your Rogue deck, um, Trump, that has like two Argent Squares in it? Would
Yeah,
it work
that'd
in
be a
there?
great example of if I expected a lot of Argent Squires or Scarlet Crusaders to
Mm-hmm.
just toss in there.
Yeah.
An excellent card.
Okay, let's moving forward. Simplicity 888 asks, StrifeCro, what player do you fear the most? You must pick one.
Um,
He's gonna say Trump. Watch.
uh, I don't know. That's tough. I would say,
He fears nobody.
well, I don't really, I'm not really scared of facing anybody,
Yeah.
but I'd say maybe some of like the up and coming ladder players, like even though they might not be as recognized as some of the other players, like I think some of them are really good, basically.
Mhm.
But I don't really have any specifics other than just the general concept.
Okay. That's a good way to dodge that question.
I don't know.
Let's see. What do you guys? Okay, this is a good question, Zage. We haven't really asked this in a while. What do you guys prefer, going first or second, and why? And what matchups does going first or second make the biggest difference? And he's kind of onto something because I think each matchup it can matter depending on what class you play and that sort of thing. Trump, thoughts on that at all?
Sure. There's two main classes which you want to go second in. That'd be Rogue, since you can use the coin as a combo. Coin SI7 agent on turn 2 is really strong. And Mage, since you can use the coin as a +1 on your mana worm.
Yes.
Ultimately, this is rather small in consequence. I think Handlock is one of the decks that you want to go first because then you can tap each turn up to 4. But I think they're rather balanced in terms of each one, and like there's small differences. But overall, it's really close.
Would you want to tap? Is that true? You'd rather go first with Handlock because I mean coining Twilight Drake on 3 is pretty nice too, right? I don't know. Like, what do you think, Strife? Is that true for you too?
Um, I think I'd rather go first with a hand block
Okay.
generally. Just because having to use your coin with hand lock means that you lower your hand size, and that's kind of all you want.
Well, of course.
I mean, but yeah, it's cool to be able to coin Hellfire, coin Twilight Drake, but it's also cool just to be one man ahead and not have to worry about having that problem as well.
Okay. But to the just generally speaking to the question, do you like to go first or second?
I like to go first turn,
Okay.
just because I think it's a little bit better most of the time.
Okay. Very cool. Let's see. Next, another Tink question here. Bully Man asks, and I think pretty good question for each of you guys. What current cards do you think have high potential for strong play in the future, but no one has found a good fit yet for them? And I'll ask you this because you seem to be trying out a lot of different cards lately and actually running them too, which is cool.
Well, the Blood Knight mentioned earlier is really good.
Mhm.
I think Mind Control tech could be really good. I've
Yes.
seen a few people practice that one. Against you, they'll often have 4 cards out also, just because they have so many guys who summon guys. Well, they have one guy who summons a guy, but they have a lot of guys.
Mhm.
Let's see. Other than that, in general, I think that... I mean, this is a little bit of a pet deck, but I think the entire Mage deck and the Priest deck haven't been explored enough, and they could be good. That's all I can say there. They're one, not popular, and two, I would admit that they're difficult to make work. But they could be good.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of different applications and utilities in the Priest in particular, and we had Amaz on the show last week, right, talking a little bit about it. But I'd agree with you there. I think more people need to play the Priest. You think the Mage deck too hasn't been explored? I think since the change, the big changes to Pyro and stuff, I'd probably agree with you. You've probably done the most exploration with it. But in general, the Mage has been played probably a lot more. Just all the different cards, right? Over the span of Hearthstone, more so than the Priest. Do you agree or no? Not.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. It has been played a lot pre-nerf. This is post-nerf. It hasn't been very popular.
Yeah. Okay, how about you, Shrife? Any card that you think is worth investigating into, or has some really good
That's a
potential?
really hard question since, if we knew, we would be using them already. Um, I guess, my best answer to that question would be, even though it's kind of already been said, like Captain Greenskin, like
Yeah.
it's not really used a lot right now, maybe, but I think it's really strong, especially in Rogue. The effect is like an upgrade, and the card is already like a 5 mana for a 5/4, so it's not even too much underpowered without the effect. And the effect is kind of big, it could easily be worth like 4 power, um,
Yeah, I
sometimes.
agree.
So I think it'd be
Okay, I'll toss
oh,
two
it's
more
great.
cards out there,
Okay.
just because I remembered them. Ancient of War could be really good
Oh yeah.
if you are facing a lot of aggro, and
Yeah.
Black Knight isn't that popular because aggro is really popular. You can't run the Black Knight into aggro. It's like a 6 mana Yeti. So you run that Ancient of War. These aggro decks have no hard removal, so they have to run like 5 or 4 guys into it, or
Mm-hmm.
like 2 guys in a Soulfire or something. And the
So
same goes for Earth Elemental. Big Game Hunter isn't that popular, neither is Black Knight. So go and play that on turn 5 and make them 3 for 1 for it.
yeah, it's funny you mentioned Ancient of War because I threw it in there just the other night just for the heck of it because of the Pagel Tink thing, and in preparation for that, I just replaced them with two Ancient of Wars, and it was actually really great. It was
Actually, that
amazing,
kind of makes
actually.
sense, especially with Tink being gone, or at least they can't exactly target your Ancient War.
Right.
They gotta get lucky. Then yeah, that's one more thing to make those big creatures that were really weak to hard removal better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, Balthazar asks, what do you think Paladin needs to be able to compete with meta hunters, zoos, and innervated yetis? Wow.
Paladin?
Yeah. Doesn't Paladin already have like something? He's already got some answers with Aldor, right? For at least innervated yetis. But do you think Paladins, I guess, are? I mean, we already talked about it being pretty balanced, but we're talking just, I guess, just very small differences. Do you think Paladin's a little bit behind those?
I feel it's weaker than the other classes, but I'm not sure, like, I don't think it's by much. That's why so it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
say like what changes they need. I think even a small change would make them, one of the top contenders, and it's still certainly even now playable. Like it's not too weak, I think.
Trump, what's your
Well,
thoughts?
the good news is the small change happened. Yeah, most decks
Uh,
cannot deal with Tyrion anymore because of the Tink Master. A lot of decks would save the Tink Master against the inevitable Tyrion, since all Paladin decks,
Mm-hmm.
most Paladin decks would run that. I think if you want to deal with Rush/Zoo type decks with Paladin, it might be a good idea to move away from like those big end game Paladins and
Yeah.
just put in some small cards in between, like Argent Squire and Knife Juggler, and just match the aggro early game and Argent Protector, and then in the late game you have some, not as many as you would usually have, but you have some of the late game to push yourself ahead.
Yeah.
I think that's something that could work.
Argent Protector kind of scales too, which is nice. Like once you get to those mid game, late game units, you can just throw on that Divine Shield and it makes it crazy, makes those units even crazier. But yeah, I think so too. I think Paladin has a lot of utility. It's just everybody's just been using it in the same way for a long time now, so it'd be cool to see. All right, let's. What's next? Okay, it says Yeezy HS asks, kind of a little bit similar, but as meta inevitably shifts back and forth, the decks nowadays are starting to look similar to the ones that players played at the first two seasons of ESG and Fight Night. Do you think that for Druids, the Sunwalkers, Ancient of Lores, Wild Growth, and Starfall are going to make a comeback? Is Shaman one of the best decks on the ladder now that Control Warlock and Control Warrior received major buffs? Okay, so first question. Do you think that Druids are going to start running Sunwalkers again? And, I mean, Ancient Allures, like, we've always run them, right? Wild
yeah.
Growth and Starfall. Starfall for sure, I think at one point was being run all the time.
Well, Starfall was run because of, that was back pre-Blood Imp nerf, and the Blood Imp was completely warping the meta with how strong
Hmm.
that kind of the original Warlock aggro board control slash
True.
whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, with Druids more being mid-range, you wouldn't run any of those cards in mid-range because you can't, right? You can't go for a late game with like a Druid with these Druid decks. They're not like the old Druid control decks. Whether Druid control can make a comeback. I'm not sure. I mean, I think Druid Control has a hard time against Druid mid-range, just because of how strong like Force Nature and Savage Roar are. Like, I've played Druid Control a couple times, maybe recently or not too recent, but like after people started using Force Nature and Savage Roar, and I always felt like I couldn't really do anything if they had the combo on turn 9. Like I'd always be at the mercy of them not having it. Like if they do have it, I just always die.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. It seems it's just like early game your stuff's kind of like similar to their stuff, and so like maybe you might take some extra damage because you have a little bit more high mana cards, so you might lose a little bit on tempo early, and then if they just have the combo on turn 9, you're probably gonna die. So I don't.
Okay. So you don't see them coming back.
Well, yeah, I mean you can't really run Sunwalker and say Ancient of War in a more mid-range druid. It's more like a control druid, right? So maybe Ancient of War, but definitely not Sunwalker. But I think I could see other classes using Sunwalker more, maybe like other control decks, such as maybe even Warrior Control, if they need that kind of effect.
Mm-hmm. Right. Trump, your thoughts?
Oh man, I guess I said it earlier. I do like some of the old throwbacks like Ancient of War and Earth Elemental. So
Yeah.
that's about it.
Yeah, but not any of the, not Sunwalker or
Sunwalker's okay.
Starfall.
I think Sunwalker might be not so good because the Zoo deck has a lot of small guys, and the Murloc decks have a lot of small guys, so the Divine Shield is really easily just killed by like 1 attack or 2 attack.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll take a couple more and then we'll call it a day. Okay, so all right, so Flawless 5 asks, this is mainly for Strife, but I mean obviously for both of you guys. Do you have any advice for deck building for high ranked players? How do you know which cards, I'm just filling in the blanks, to add in order to counter a specific deck? It seems like the best players always know what's missing in the deck in order to make it viable. So yeah, Strife. Yeah, I guess can you explain? I guess any advice on? I think he's pretty much asking how to counter specific things or
Well,
when building a deck.
I mean, a big part of it is just like understanding like the interactions between the cards. I mean, I've played so much Hearthstone that I kind of grok it, where I can. It's like a term, but
Right.
I kind of grok it where I kind of understand like the implications of adding cards and removing cards. So, I mean, I guess if you just play enough and think about the game a lot, like basically like think about the game a lot. Like when like I've thought about like Hearthstone so much, especially when I played like 10 hours a day a lot. Like I would, finish Hearthstone, then like go to bed and think about Hearthstone,
Dream
like
about it.
as I'm sleeping. Yeah, it's like, and if you do that stuff a lot, you're just gonna understand it more and more. So it's not really any easy advice on how to, build a good deck or see how that stuff works, other than just to be able to just think about the game a lot, basically, and not just play. Not just only play, like even when you're not playing.
Right. Trump. Advice for him.
So the good news is it basically comes with experience, and unusually enough, the arena experience helps out quite a bit because you get to try out a lot of lesser used cards and see if they're good in specific situations. But ultimately, if you play a lot of Constructed and you try out a few cards here and there, it's also a big deal. Turns out that even though, like, say that Shaman deck as an example between Strife and I, we probably share about 24, maybe 25 of the same cards, and yet they play so differently.
Yeah.
So
6 cards would be a big difference. I mean, 5 cards. 5, 6
yeah,
cards.
I mean, that's
big difference, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does change a lot of the flavor.
You're gonna say something, Stripe?
Oh no, no, I
Okay.
was just agreeing. Like 5 card difference is a lot, basically, on
Yeah.
how the decks can play
I
or
mean,
how to there.
I guess adding to what Stripe said, I think in general, maybe just looking at the game like more from an analytical standpoint, like really just analyze the game. Like and look at some games from these guys when they played. I don't know, ESGN or SeatStory Cup, and really take a look at each situation, take a look at really how the viability of each card is, more so than just like going and playing decks. You can do that too, but I think you might be able to reduce some time if you actually really sit down there and try to figure things out by just looking at data and that sort of thing. Might
Yeah,
help
you
you
also just,
with understanding
and
and
this
stuff.
goes through a bit of card playing experience, but you get a feel for what a good card is just because of stats. Like, for example, well, there's a 1 mana card. It's a 2/1. Well, that sucks, but it's a 2/1 with a benefit. Well, that might be good. And then, like,
Yeah,
if you count each stat as a point, then you can see how someone might have thought, oh, wow, Shield Bearer could be really good. It's like 4 points for 1 card and it has taunt, which is probably worth a point. Like, there's still the
yeah,
old point
exactly.
calculations. And that's
Uh-huh.
not something that I would have seen. But now that it's out there, everyone's like, oh, yeah, Shield Bearer, that's obvious.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, technically, not having one attack is like a -1 point. It's like a -1 point if it's zero, in my opinion.
I mean,
But
okay, so let's talk about Shield Bearer with you, Stripe. I mean,
okay.
that was a big discussion probably like a week ago. I think in the Reddit subreddit, and I think Reynard kind of I think brought it to light just with the I think his version of the Zoo deck at the time, and I think it is serving its purpose. I mean, I think it's just throwing a body in there that allows you to protect your weak damage minions or allowing you to kind of get more units on the board.
Yeah, like I said, that deck is really based around control decks trying to remove their creatures with spells a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's why the deck is so good against, like, say, even stuff like generally warrior control, shaman control, or something like that.
yeah,
That's why like Giants has such a good matchup against it. Because Giants doesn't care if you throw down 1 or 2 creatures protected by a shield bearer. They're just gonna ignore it and do their own thing.
yeah,
Whereas other decks where they're having to remove all their creatures. Well, you can think how hard it is to remove a shield bearer, because
yeah.
that's just what it does. Like, it's just hard to remove.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So,
Okay, cool. Um, One more question. Okay, we'll ask a hunter question here. Thoughts on the hunter control deck, and what would the key cards for this deck be? And we saw hunter, so obviously hunter aggro. Everybody knows the hunter aggro, but I thought I felt like the hunter control was making a little bit of a, you know, just there was a tiny push from a hunter control for a little bit, but now I don't hear it at all anymore. So, what are your thoughts on hunter control, Trump? Can it be viable right now?
yeah, it can be viable. In fact, I think it is viable.
Okay. Talk to me about some of the key cards.
The key cards would be Deadly Shot, which is like a 3 mana assassinate. That's amazing. It's
Yeah.
got the Scar, which is like rivaling Fire Elemental in terms of goodness. High main, or Savannah
Yeah,
High main,
Savannah
for those
Hyman.
who don't know the lingo. And they've got, as usual, the Doggy Unleash and like the combo still. So they basically play as your usual Rush Hunter deck, except with value cards as opposed to cards that try to hit once.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Okay. Strife.
I think the problem with Hunter, it's like pretty strong. Like, sometimes when I play against Hunter Control, I just like lose and I feel hopeless. But I think the problem with Hunter Control is like they have to tune it really specific against one deck, because a lot of their cards like aren't very good overall. So like I think like sometimes when I lose, say, Druid versus Hunter Control, like when they're using like 2 deadly shots or something, like that's like one of the cards that's like extremely good against, like, in some matchups, and extremely bad in others. And I think they have like a lot of cards like that, where they might tune it one way. Like, for example, sometimes when I've had trouble Druid versus Hunter control, I found out that the people I'm playing, they don't even use Explosive Trap, and that's like one of the best cards against aggro, but they're not using it because they just want to beat Druid. So I think that's kind of the problem with Hunter control. Like, I've never seen a Hunter control that's really solid that can do pretty good against everything.
Yeah. What do you think are the key? So besides Deadly Shot, what do you think are key cards for the hunter if they were to build a control deck?
Uh, there's a lot, but explosive trap, deadly shot, multi shot, explosive shot, um,
Removal, basically.
freaking
I mean,
trap,
that's pretty much what
and
that deck's built for removal.
especially Savannah Highmane as well. I mean, those are key
Mm.
cards.
What do you think are the key traps besides? I mean, do you like misdirection? Do you like cold or freezing trap?
I don't like misdirection. I think for hunter control, I like freezing trap and explosive trap.
Okay.
I think it's possible you run zero traps.
Yeah.
That would be
Mm-hmm.
a way to go too. And perhaps you could make it a beast theme since Houndmaster is really, really good.
It's a beast theme. Okay. Yeah, I mean the high main's obviously a beast too, so there's a lot of targets I think from the high main if he doesn't get silenced too. But okay, guys. Well, I think why don't we wrap the show? Thanks for all your questions just from the community, and again, hopefully we got to as many, or at least the questions that you wanted to hear. We did skip some because they all had to do with Nat Pagal and Tink, and I think we covered some of it during the show. So forgive me if I didn't actually go through all of the ones at the top there. But why don't we wrap up, guys? I think it was a great show. Always fun having you on here, Strife, and of course Trump back from the last 2 weeks. So really, really great having you back, of course. But you want to do some shout outs? Thank yous, Strife?
I don't want to do any shoutouts.
Okay. All right. No problem. Trump?
Sure. I'd like to shout out Hungry Crab for giving me $1,000.
Yes. Yes. That's value right there, man. How much money do you think it costs to get you a Hungry Crab? $1? $1,
Yeah, probably.
$2. Or one arena run or something like that? Yeah, probably. No, really cool. Is that it?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, big shout out obviously to you guys again, and for those of you that are watching today, big shout out to you guys for that. And a lot of people in the chat asking about Crip. So the thing is Crip is still part of Value Town. For Preparing is totally part of Value Town. It's just now that he has a different schedule, he's over in Greece. We have to figure out the times for Value Town because he can't do it during this time anymore. So Crip's still going to be part of all the arena centric Value Town episodes, which we'll be doing some more soon, very, very soon. And we'll probably have to do it earlier, and I'll probably tell you the times whenever we do that. But just to kind of give you a heads up, people wondering where Crip is and all that stuff. That's just that's where he is. VODs for Value Town, if you missed any of it today or any of the past episodes, you can find on youtube.com/ChanManV. I'll have this VOD up maybe a little bit later today, just because you guys always want audio versions too now, so I'm trying to get audio versions too at the same time. So expect it really, really soon, and I think that's going to be it. Follow this channel if you enjoy Value Town or any of my shows and filters, Wednesday Night Sprites, any of that good stuff. It's a great way to get notified whenever we go live, and yeah, that's going to be it. Oh, follow us on Twitter too, at TrumpSC, at StrifeCro, and at ChanManV. But for StrifeCro, Trump, and ChanManV, we'll see you next time. Later.